Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast with Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis. I'm Eric Kane. Exterior Home Solutions, local, trusted since 1999. Free estimate, 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Austin, there's been some really bad storms come through this area this past week, whether it's roofing, siding, whatever exterior renovation you need, they can handle it over there at Exterior Home Solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Give Jeff and Dustin a call. And, you're right. I know Hubbs is in line for a new roof at his house. A lot of people are, and especially as you hit the storm season coming up here in the next few months, it's a perfect time to kind of upgrade and, take that, potentially leaky roof and make yourself dry again.
All right, so we've got about 17 to 20 questions we're going to try to dive into here today. So without further ado, we'll get started. We're going to start with Zoozify. Aside from George Macintyre, who is the next highest priority on Tennessee's board for the class of 2025? Austin, would you say, off at the tackle, David Sanders? Would you say in-state, take care of Cam Sparks or Ethan Utley? Where would you go with this?
Well, this is David Sanders or Josh Petty or any of those top shelf linemen. Tennessee's needs there don't just go away if they're able to close out, Hurd. And if they don't close out Hurd, then they've really got, some needs on their hands. So, for my liking, it's David Sanders. It's really not close. I know Georgia's, if he gets in the boat and picks Tennessee, will want wide receivers, and that's natural. But he's also want somebody to, protect him, because he's tired of getting pounded in the high school level. So I go David Sanders, and it'll lay down for me.
Let's go to Sam Smith, 2233. A couple of questions here. Rob, do you see Rick trying to save minutes off Zakai's as we get into the dog days of college basketball season? Do the Vols take care of Danny's idiot brother? And then I'll take the last one after you get done.
I do not see Rick trying to save minutes off Zakai. I mean, he played him. What was it? I mean, I'm not trying to make. I'm not saying this is a bad thing because Rick and Zakai are both this way. Played him 39 minutes against NC State like 3 weeks ago. There's, he's coming back. Rick's careful. He's careful. They get in a tight game. The guy plays 39 minutes. No, he's not good. I mean, Rick will tell you that every Tuesday or Friday before they play. We're gonna watch it. And if it's a tight game, he's gonna play 40 minutes. I mean, so yeah, if it's a blowout, I think maybe Rick will rest him, but no. Short answer, no. I don't think Rick is going to be able to say, keep himself from playing Zakai. I mean, he'll tell you himself it's his security blanket. So I mean, yeah, I think Coach will have some intentions to not play Zakai so much, and I think at the end of the day he'll play a lot.
Sam's last question is for me about when are we going to get official word on Zane Denton. Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here the week before they're reportedly coming back to campus to start individual workouts. I've kind of circled that date of Monday the 15th, kind of individual. It's not the end-all be-all date, but that's the date I'm kind of paying attention to. But been tracking this obviously for a couple of weeks. It's really just day by day. I think there's a lot of moving parts here with this one. So we'll see what happens. But when they get back on campus and start individual workouts, I think that's a date we should all be paying attention to. So we'll continue to look at that one in regards to Zane Denton. Let's go to Cades Cove Vol. Do you believe Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy will be near 100% by fall camp, Brent Hubbs? I would imagine Thornton would for sure. And, that long a time since the injury, I would say the Brew is going to be ready to roll as well.
Thornton for sure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think Thornton's going to be good to go in spring. Now, the question for Thornton's going to be, can he stay healthy, right? I mean, he was hurt in spring. He was hurt in summer. He's had the hamstring stuff that's bothered him. He's got from this injury, the ankle injury he had, he will be 100%. I think Brew will be, close. Will be really close to there. I think they'll be cautious with him. I think they'll be cautious with him in fall camp and won't do anything crazy with him there. But I do think that he's going to be, I think he's going to be pretty close to 100%, if not 100% by August. I think he hopes to be 100% and feels like he's well on his way right now.
We'll move over now to Loud Noises. Got a funny one than a real one. It says, AP, we all know Coach Josh Heupel doesn't have the budget to pull you away from Volquest. However, name the job in the AD that's in the athletic department that would be the most tempting. Honestly, wouldn't mind hearing from everybody. You can take a stab at that if you want to. But the real question is about recruiting. Any traction getting Dominick McKinley to still take his visits? Feel free to put a percentage on that if you want to. We know that you love those.
I would take Josh Heupel's job in the athletic department.
9 million reasons why, right?
I'd get my $9 million for a few years, get fired, and go retire and go play golf. So I mean, that's pretty easy for me. Either that or Danny White's job. Either one. I mean, like if I'm going big. I'm not going for, something small. So, as for Dominick McKinley, yeah, Tennessee's still in contact with him. They're still talking to him. Would love to get him up here for a visit. We'll see if they're able to do that. I think a lot of that depends on, his connection to the new LSU defensive staff and how quickly he can kind of build a bond with those guys between now and the end of the month.
Let's go to Reltney for Life. Got a couple here. We'll break it down. Brent, he says that saw the director of recruiting recently left. Do you see Tennessee going in-house or spread a wider net to fill that role? Feels like they got a couple of nice little in-house options, wouldn't you say?
I think in-house makes the most sense. I think there's a lot of confusion on what that job is. And I think Angela Brummett did a terrific job. She did a terrific job in that role. But that's not an evaluation role. That's not that's a lot more event management than it is anything else. And it's coordination, and it's not easy. Okay. I mean, you've got to be super organized. You've got to have a plan. You've got to have a good personality, because you are dealing with people on campus, but you're not deciding who they recruit. You're not sitting there looking at it going, okay, I like these offensive linemen. Let's go recruit them. That role's a very different role. I think Tennessee puts on a good product for visit weekends officially, for unofficial visits when they do whatever they're calling those events now, Austin. They've been everything under the sun, the barbecues and all those types of things. So I think that promoting from within and keeping that continuity going would make the most sense to me.
Going into year 4, where is UT failing in their high school offensive line recruiting? Austin, if you want to take a stab at that.
What was the question again? Sorry.
Going into year 4, where is UT failing in their high school offensive line recruiting?
I think it's I don't think they really failed in 2020 for the class of 2024. I think this is probably the first year where you felt like, okay, these are some really quality offensive linemen. Could they have landed a Jordan Seaton or somebody like that? Sure. But I mean, I thought that their overall offensive line class was really, really good this year. I thought it was medium to solid last year, because I still think Sham offers some good things. Same thing with Vice and Lang. It's the first couple of years where they just missed and whiffed. And I think that's where you're seeing it stick out, because like this should be, those should be the classes where if you hit on 1 to 2 of those players, you feel pretty good about, where you're at in 25. You got to put some pieces around a couple of these guys, but like, you don't feel really good about any of those players that were brought in those first couple of classes. The last year, this year, a little bit different. Again, I think it still just boils down to building relationships and, recruiting the old fashioned way.
And then the last question here from the poster: if GMAC doesn't choose Tennessee, where will Josh Heupel pivot at that quarterback position?
It would be Madden, and they've been recruiting Madden this whole time. So we'll see after that.
All right, let's jump to Gator Dog Rob Lewis. What position group do you think will have the biggest jump next football season?
Oof, man, that's a really good question. The biggest jump, or you kind of hope it's maybe secondary. Do you not? I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's kind of a leap of faith, because you're not hoping like some guys that played get better. At least in many cases, you're hoping some guys that haven't played show up and work it. So I'll go secondary, just because it's been kind of an albatross around the neck of Vol Nation for the past couple of years.
I'm gonna go wide receiver. Just because I think that they have a chance to be more dynamic there. And I think part of that's going to be quarterback related. I think more of the field is going to be open up to all the receivers. And I think Brazel has got some explosiveness to him. And I think Mike Matthews is going to be a good player. I think if you can keep Brew healthy, I think that's a place where they can be better. And it's not just a receiver. I think part of that again is the quarterback. And maybe, Austin, the field opens up for you more. So I'm going to go wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything Brent just said. I
Yeah,
think
I was just saying, I think it's a great point about Nico too. How much better does like a point guard? How much better does he make people around him?
yeah, making them around him, and then you add better quality talent to be throwing to, and I think it just raises the bar for everybody, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, I'm with Hubs. I think the wide receivers, especially Brazel, they miss that bigger guy that could go up and go catch a 50-50 ball that was thrown down the sideline.
And I will say this: they're going to be more athletic in the secondary, but more inexperienced. But they're going to be more athletic there, Eric. So they're going to look different in the secondary, and I think they can be better there. I think for me, it's just the wide receiver position because they lack that explosiveness. It felt a little bit pedestrian with comeback routes and sideways passes at times this past year. And I think it'd be better than that in 24.
Well, compared to what we saw the first 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. Which is probably unfair. Which is probably unfair, right? Because I don't know how many years you're going to get like you had in 22. Where guys are 15 yards behind everybody running wide open. I don't know that you're going to get. I don't know that we'll see a year like that we saw that year.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. Secondary, you're literally starting brand new. All 5 starters are gone, and so you're starting over with, just a couple of starts in that group right now of projected starters, if you will, at least from here on Tennessee's side. Wide receiver, couldn't agree more. And then, kind of going off what you said, I mean, the quarterback position in 2023, especially compared to some of the years you've had here the last 15 years or so, wasn't horrible, but could stand to improve overall to get back. And again, maybe it is a little unfair to compare it to 22 and 21 even, but get back to more of what that is in the Josh Heupel offense as a position group, and that being quarterback. And we'll see if Nico can do that and enhance the wide receivers in the process. Some bigger picture questions here from Nashville 615. How do you fix the transfer portal, NIL, high school signing day schedule? Andy Staples mentioned schools having to change the academic calendar. I think Andy was more or less saying that it's probably impossible to change the academic calendar. I don't think that the academic calendar would move for football, even though football is the moneymaker. But still, big picture question there, Brent or Austin, if anybody wants to take a stab at it.
Well, I think for me, I think the only thing that you look at there that you, from a calendar standpoint, that you could do something with is signing day. And the question then becomes, do you go back to the February date or do you bump up to an August date and take December out of the question? Here's one of the challenges with the February date. How many guys are going to lose an opportunity because their scholarship gets taken away by a transfer, in the first part of January? Is somebody going to get cut? Say you got a receiver targeted, you've got a receiver committed, and then a really productive receiver comes available and you want to take him, and then you cut a guy a couple of weeks before signing day. What is that going to look like? How does that go? That's part of the issue, part of the things you have to look at. The August date is, coaching changes. How many guys are you going to let out when there's a coaching change and that type of thing? But I think that's the only thing on the calendar that can move. I don't think you can move the portal window. You have to make them available to be able to transfer in the wintertime, and there's no way to move that calendar. As for NIL, unless you're going to a collective bargaining agreement and unionizing and doing what Jim Harbaugh's talking about doing, that the only way to kind of manage that is, some people getting told no. To me, Austin, I don't mean, as long as people keep paying, people are going to keep transferring. If some high profile guys don't get what they want and it becomes very public knowledge that teams aren't paying what they think they're paying, then it changes. Right now, everybody thinks that guys are getting $500,000 to $1 million when they go to the portal.
Yeah. Or getting, if they're used to getting, let's say 75, they think they can get double that or triple that in the portal, right? Like, that they're able to really increase their income. And so, I think to really kind of squash a lot of this, you've got to go the Jim Harbaugh route, and they've got to be some type of collective bargaining, some type of revenue sharing. I think that slows it down substantially, in my opinion.
Well, and Rob, if you do that, I think the challenge is who leads that, who represents the players, because the turnover in the players is high in and out of the sport. So who's got who are you going to put in charge that everybody believes has the player's best interest at heart? There'll be a lot of people want it because they can have some power and make some money off of it. But who is that? You know?
Yeah, I think you're completely correct, Albert. I also think that we're a million miles away from anything like that happening. I mean, that is, I think, I mean, that would be ideal in a perfect world. I mean, you're talking about different conferences, you know, different rules for, I mean, different, you know, private schools, public schools. I just think that we're light years away from, you know, any kind of governing body being able to level the playing field.
You know, Harbaugh also mentioned a players union, Brent. I mean,
yeah, I just don't know how you. I mean, who organizes it?
Yeah,
Who's on
exactly.
it? Players are going on and off every year when they graduate.
Oh, yeah.
It's just hard. I
Yes,
mean, you know,
it is
super hard.
it's just, and now you're talking about what you know, coaches. You hear this from coaches all the time, right? What a coach's problem is that what Derek Mason's problems are at MTSU are different than what Josh Heupel's problems are at Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
But what the student athlete is dealing with at Tulane or MTSU versus Ohio State, you know, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan are very different. Those are very different things. So how do you get that organized? You know, I think that's going to be really hard.
And also, I mean, you're talking NIL. If you're just talking NIL across the board, you're also talking, you know, female gymnast, you know, female softball player. I mean, like this, there's a lot. There's a lot. As some really intelligent person once said, there's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving for sure. You know, here's the one thing that I think is kind of interesting, and it's not gotten any play because Ole Miss has been more about who they're getting, but it is kind of interesting. I mean, you know, Junkins leaves, and of course the narrative was that he leaves because he's such a, you know, he was a locker room problem or this, whatever. But the feeling from Ole Miss is, you know, with all the Lane Kiffin's tweets and all stuff, is like, hey, take care. We moved on to somebody else, you know, and that's kind of the first time you sort of had that type deal where it's like kind of a true free agency. Basically, we're just not going to pay you what you think you can get elsewhere. So take care. How many coaches do we ever get to that point? Because coaches are never told no. Very rarely are they told no on anything. So their answer is just pay. Just pay them. I want them on my roster. Just pay. So when are we going to get to the point where people really say, Coach, we're not doing that. We're not keeping that guy. You know, and everybody talks about having a GM, Austin, you know, but is a GM really going to have control over a coach? I mean, the GM's making whatever a GM's going to make at the college level. Is he going to tell the $9-10 million a year coach, here's the roster I'm giving you to coach with this year?
I'm going to go no.
This is what we're going to get.
Because unlike NFL, that guy is always, the head coach is always going to be able to fire that guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, that's going to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to Austin Thomas at Ole Miss, but you're never going to tell me, and he could say here on this podcast and tell me I'm wrong, and I still wouldn't believe him, that he's out there making calling all the shots at Ole Miss, right? I mean, like, at the end of the day, Lane is dictating every bit of that, and you know, Austin Thomas may play a role, but he is not, and I don't think any of them are going, yep, that's what you're definitely doing. That's what you're definitely doing. This is more like, you know,
and Rob's right. Like Lane can fire,
and Lane can fire him.
Yeah.
I mean, just like Mike. I mean, just, you know, Mike Vrabel could not fire Maurice Carthon. You know, it's the difference.
Too soon, Rob. Too soon. Last part of that question here: college football playoff. Do you think the college football? Do you think it's eventually going to totally separate from the NCAA? And kind of what would your timeline be on that?
I mean, I think it will at some point. I think it's going to have to. I think the question again is, can college football get organized? I thought this was the best thing Kurt Ferentz said in Orlando, and that was that college football is a bunch of independent contractors who are occupying the same space, right? Like it's if you're building a house, it's a bunch of individual people coming in and doing their parts, but nobody is in charge of the house. So the question becomes, if you break away from the NCAA, who is in charge? Who is the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, ACC? These other people are going to go, I want that guy in charge. That there's no bias. I mean, how do you get a group of people who's never been organized, you know, who's never really cooperated and worked together with each other because of their competition on and off the field. How do you get them all to say, this guy should be the boss? This guy should be the commissioner? I think that's the first challenge before you ever get into a situation of breaking away, because you can't break away without somebody being in charge.
Good questions there from Nashville 615. Sounds like an entire podcast in the summer that we can maybe dive down into. But right now, before we get into more of your questions, I want to get a quick word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
It's one of those phone calls that you hate to get from your kids. Hey, Dad, a tree fell on my house. Well, we got that call a couple of weeks back from our daughter at her house here, and the first call that I made was to Exterior Home Solutions. The peace of mind that they gave me and us as a family when they came out here and came up with a plan, got us connected with the right people, is absolutely priceless. Use the same people that I use. In that time of need, Exterior Home Solutions.
And that phone number is 524-5888. You can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com as well. Local, trusted since 1999. If you have any issues with the storms here this week, give them a call. They will help you out. All right, let's dive down back into the questions. Atheron's got a couple. Good one at the top. Who's going to be tight end number 3 if Stays or Davis gets hurt? It's a good question. Brent, you look at got Emmanuel Koye on roster. You got Cole Harrison, who was just signed. Probably a walk-on, though I believe Hunter Salmon is gone, but there's a couple other walk-on bodies there. I would say right now it's a walk-on. Where would you go with this?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I don't think they have an answer there.
It's a walk-on right now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a walk-on, but I don't know what walk-on that would be.
And they're going to continue to swing here, with tight ends available until school starts. So we'll see if they're able to add, someone else to that room.
Yeah, and somebody better be delivering a pallet of protein shakes to Cole Harrison weekly.
What about Okoye?
He's going to have to get bigger and grow and learn in a hurry.
Yeah, agreed.
Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I was just saying, Okoye. Anybody temperature check on that one? I mean, it's a fascinating story, but I mean, we got any idea if that's going to have it happy ended?
I think for me with Okoye, there's two things. One, physically, I still think I'm not sure how much of ahead of Cole Harrison he is at this point from a physical standpoint. AP. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's rail thin, right? He's athletic,
He's muscular, but he is thin. He's not got a lot of weight on him.
He's thin,
wiry.
And again, I go back to the fact that when you watched his high school tape, they didn't have lines on the field. And I'm not trying to be funny, but there were no hash marks there. I mean, to think about how far that guy has to come in learning the game of football, I mean, it's a project. And I'm not knocking the kid. It's not his fault. He put on a helmet 3 or 4 months before he signed a scholarship paper to come play football in America at the University of Tennessee. So it's a project, and it's still a long ways from completion, in my opinion.
Yeah, he met Kevin Bacon, and they're up there.
So why you laugh when I say something and then you make that comment? I don't understand, AP.
I mean, he's very similar. Like he was in the Congo.
You're dodging Hubbard's question, AP. It's true. It's a double standard. Double standard.
I'm just kidding you, AP. You're right. I mean, it really is. I mean, his knowledge of the game is, it's very primitive. It's very low level, and so he's got a lot to learn. Plus, he's got to figure out how to play the
weight. Well, he's got to get on weight. I mean, you brought the best point we brought up was the fact that he's just not big.
He looks like a basketball player still.
Or receiver. It would be the best to put it in football terms. He's more in a receiver body than he is a tight end body.
But I mean, you got to think about, we always talk about, evolution and development, all that, and the Josh Heupel offense. I mean, he's doing that, but still just learning what college football is. I mean, was it Jackson Ross that said when he came over he didn't know what a flag was? I mean, it might not be to that extreme, but you're still learning as you go. A couple more here from Atheron. Just like in recruiting, do you think Tennessee should be casting a wider net in the transfer portal?
I don't know. I think the transfer portal, it may be at positions they need multiple bodies at, but I mean, like in a lot of ways, I think you just you want to cherry pick certain spots, right? Like, okay, hey, I need a tight end. Like, whereas like Ole Miss is, hey, let's go get every position, right? Like it's a different philosophy. There's nothing wrong with their philosophy. There's nothing wrong with Tennessee's philosophy. It's just different. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe, but don't think it's something you have to do at every spot.
Which of last year's freshmen had the biggest impact on the 2024 team? Well, Rob, I would start the conversation with Nico, of course, Ricky Gibson at cornerback. Cam Seldon's going to run the football. You can kind of go down the list. I think Tyree Weathersby, once he gets healthy, is going to be in that rotation. Any other freshmen from last year that's going to play a big role you project?
I don't know if he's going to play a big role, but I want to see what Caleb Herring is going to do or what he's going to turn into. I mean, does he? Yeah, I wouldn't put this on anybody, but does he take a James Pierce type leap, or just not a James Pierce type leap? Is he in the same zip code? Can we see that? It's kind of crowded at receiver with second year guys, but Nathan Leacock is a guy that people have had questions about. What does he turn into? But the big ones are the secondary. Ricky Gibson, we saw him, Jordan Matthews, John Slaughter, Christian Conyer, all those guys. I mean, I don't know what their role is going to be, but those are the ones that I'm most interested in seeing. Those dudes in the secondary.
For me, it's Ethan Davis, because you're not playing 700 snaps or whatever the number ends up being, 900 snaps to one tight end. I mean, you're going to have to play two tight ends there, and Holden Stays is a guy who's going to play a lot. But you go look at this past year, they split almost equally the reps between
one snap off.
Jacob Warren and McCollin Castles. Ethan Davis is, to me, he's a guy who has to make an impact in 24 at the tight end position for Tennessee.
And then last one here from Athrun. If Tennessee gets GMAC, will he create a snowball effect in recruiting, or will it be more like Nico in recruiting where kids took notice, but it didn't really end in results for Tennessee? See, again, AP, go back to that class. It's weird because we all thought the snowball effect would happen on the offensive side of the football, whereas Tennessee looked like they had a pretty solid defensive class that year.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the whole, Eric, George has a chance to have a greater impact because Tennessee's footprint is where George is from, right? Like Tennessee's footprint is not in California. I mean, they dabble out there, right? But like at Nico, if Tennessee was in LA, how many more California kids come because of Nico? I think it's significantly more. So I do think that there's a greater chance just because of geographical footprint and where George is from for him to have a little bit bigger impact.
Here, AP, here's my question: with the evolution of NIL, is peer recruiting as significant as it was 5 or 6 years ago, or do you think it's lessened a little bit because it's truly become more business-like with high school kids essentially having agents helping them navigate the process, and it's a little bit less emotional, go play with your buddies? Do you think peer recruiting has taken a little bit of a back seat compared to where it was?
Yes, it still matters. But I think the fact that most of these, transfers, high school kids all have NIL representation, and, those people are about one thing, getting their client the best deal they can. Right. So, I mean, like it's, and that's why you see so much change in it. I mean, it can be done and then next moment not done. I mean, I know one kid that's committed to another school, and he committed to a certain school, and his representation called another school after that, like literally like an hour later, not like days, not weeks, an hour later, and said, "Hey, we could work this deal right here to bring player X to your school." Like even when a kid commits, it's never done, right? Like it's constant. And that's why college coaches, don't have much hair left.
I mean, think of this. I mean, we're in a world where what you're talking about, AP. I mean, transfer portal decommitments are a real thing now.
Yeah, like a T-Mac.
Well, and then look at the quarterback from UNLV who was going to Georgia.
Literally within hours.
Yeah,
Look at the receiver last year.
I mean, you're having public declarations in the transfer portal. Hey, I'm committed here, and then hours later, a day later, I'm committed somewhere else. So it's just another layer that coaches are dealing with.
Let's stay on the GMAC subject right here, AP. This is from Money Bradster. Aside from Macintyre, who are some other 2025s that could pull the trigger here soon?
I mean, I think you look at the in-state kids. I don't know if anybody's pulling the trigger soon, but I mean, I think Cam Sparks is probably a spring decision. When does Rodarius Jackson do something? Ethan Utley. I mean, Ethan Utley announced his top 5 at Christmas, and so I mean, like you would think that he's getting closer to narrowing it down even further. So, again, I don't think you're seeing like 3 or 4 commits. Once George pulls the trigger for somebody, I think what you see is more commits this spring.
We'll go to iHeart Vols. Rob Lewis, what role do you see Dalton Knecht having the rest of the year? Do you think Rick would consider bringing him off the bench in a Vinny the Microwave Johnson type role to add some instant offense?
Muted.
Man, it's been weeks. I don't think Dalton is coming off the bench. I think his role is going to be that he's going to be Tennessee's offensive option number 1. I mean, I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's going to change. I mean, he's not scored 20 plus the last 4 games, but he's still Tennessee's best offensive player. I don't think there's any question about that.
All right, let's shift down here to Crust 33. Brent Hubbs, how much longer do you think this coaching staff remains together? I mean, it's an every offseason conversation with some guys will flirt with some head coaching positions. But overall, this staff's done a pretty good job of staying together. How much longer do you think that will happen?
Well, I mean, I think they're all going to be back next year. I think they'll be together unless somebody
NFL, barring an NFL.
Barring an NFL, or if a college coach leaves for the NFL, creates a trickle-down effect in some way, maybe that could happen. But I don't think Josh Heupel's making any changes this offseason with the staff. I mean, listen, Knoxville's a really good place to live. For this staff, it's been great because they have not dealt – I mean, the gnashing of the teeth is a 9-win season to this point, right? I mean, it's gone pretty well. I mean, you beat Alabama in year 2. You beat Florida. People like you. Knoxville's pretty cheap. They leave you alone, and don't bug you. And it's a great place to raise a family. And so I don't think anybody's just looking to jump unless it's a promotion or a head coaching job. And those guys are going to be selective in head coaching jobs. And I think a lot of assistant coaches, AP, are trying to figure out what their next move is as this sport evolves with NIL and the calendar and everything we're talking about. They're trying to figure out, like, what is my long-term goal projection to be as a coach in a game of football? Where's that at, and what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, because it's the calendar ever evolves. Like, their ability to recruit and stuff changes year by year. And so, yeah, I mean, I think college coaches are constantly kind of trying to figure out the path for them. Sometimes the easiest path, sometimes they don't want to go to the NFL, they want to coach in college, and what's the best path to coach in college? Because not every school is a 75-hour a week school, right? Like some coaches are like, man, go home, get out of here at 5 o'clock. And sometimes that's the path that some of these coaches choose.
Yeah, and you got a couple of coaches of the staff who aren't young in the teeth. So how much longer do they want to coach? Before they before they decide to retire. I think that's something that's on the table in the potential coming years. Not right now, but that's something that you kind of look at as well.
JJ05 wants to know, how many more transfers can Tennessee take, and how many possible departures could you see in the spring?
That's a great question.
Numbers.
I'll let them figure all that out. I just, report on who might be coming to campus and who might not. I mean, I would say 1 to 2 more, depending on who they can, let's see if they get Hurd finished out. Let's see if, kind of what happens, with any potential tight ends. So I would go maybe 1 to 2 more.
Yeah, I don't think they're in a situation where they're gonna they would be forced to turn a kid away because they're up against, your 82 or 83 number. But I don't know that there's a ton of guys out there that they have real interest in. And then as for the springtime part of the question, we'll see. I mean, the spring portal window has not been nearly as active as the winter portal window, but guys coming out of spring practice, you never know where those guys might be and what they might be thinking coming out of spring. It used to be that was a time where guys who were just graduating, that's the first time they could go in the portal. But with the change of that rule, anybody that wants to go in now can go in right now. And so I don't know that the spring is going to be it's not going to be nearly as active as it's been this winter.
All right, AP, let's end on this one. This is from Slappy Ball, and there's a list of prospects, and he wants to know
AP's favorite.
if Tennessee's in the lead, in the top group, or trailing for the following prospects. You see it on screen right there, AP, if you just want to work at your own pace there.
Work at my own pace. Thanks. David Sanders, top group. Juan Gaston, maybe top group. Either top group or trailing. Rodarius Jackson, top group. Josh Petty, top group. Terrion Grant, don't think Tennessee's doing much there. Caleb Cunningham, top group. Ethan Utley, top group. Cam Sparks, top group. I mean, you probably could lean leading on a couple of those, but, out of respect for those kids, I'm not putting any bullseyes out there. So, Tennessee's in pretty good shape with a few of those guys.
Oh, wow. This will be the last one. We'll get in one of our favorite handles. I miss Denarius Moore. How can our running game improve, evolve going into next year? Additionally, where was the speed option at times this year? The run game's been really good, Brent. Short yardage situations continue, just like in 2021. They were not fantastic. You saw some evolution there in the bowl game. They went under center, multiple tight ends, couple of backs. Maybe you see some more of that. And then the speed option, they do it in spots. They did it a couple times in 22. One time that I remember they did it in 23 was, a turnover at Missouri, right? To begin the second half, or maybe it wasn't a turnover, but it's not a huge part of their offense, but it's something that they have in their arsenal.
I don't love the speed option because when Hendon Hooker ran it, he got blasted every time he ran it.
The option, if you're a quarterback in any option, you're getting hit every play.
So
even if you don't have the ball, you're getting hit every play if you do it correctly.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that play, but whatever. In terms of improving, they just finished their third straight year of rushing for over 2,500 yards. It's never been done in Tennessee school history. It's a pretty good run game. I don't know how much it evolves. Look, they need to be more powerful in the short yardage situation, so you can improve there. That's where they missed Darnell Wright and Jerome Carvin the most in the run game, was in those short yardage spots, because they just leaned heavily on the right side. But in terms of schematics in the run game, it's Rob. Where are they at in the SEC? Top 2, top 3?
They were second, 211 yards a game this year.
They're averaging pretty good.
Yeah, over 200 yards a game in the SEC. I want to go out on this, and Hubbard and AP, and everybody. If I'm Josh Heupel, the design quarterback runs are getting ready to get. I don't know if I take them out of the playbook, but they're getting ready to be dialed way back with the kid that's going to be under center.
2 touchdowns in the Iowa game.
That's great, but he can run it. He can. I think he's a really good runner. But with that arm and with the depth, I'm not saying you put him in mothballs, but man, I just wonder how much. I wonder how much it changes the offense.
I hear you. You don't want to get him hurt. Like, you don't want to take unnecessary risks. I get it, but sometimes, Brent, against a team that's really good against the run that allowed only 4 touchdowns per game, and you're in the red zone, you want that extra blocker, man. That design quarterback run worked out perfectly on 2 of those plays. I agree. Don't do it an awful lot, but it's there.
He had 3 rushing touchdowns just for the record.
I know, but the 2, one was a draw, the other one was a straight quarterback sweep.
Right. The other one was a run pass option. It was an RPO game.
And speaking of mothballs, I put Eric's ping pong game in mothballs. in Orlando.
Here's where I am with the quarterback run.
Game 11-1, buddy.
I think, Rob, you bring up a good point in that you don't want the guy beat up for 12 games. I think you're selective with it and you use it in games that you have to have it in, much the way you did with Hendon Hooker. Okay. In the Florida game, they had concerns about running the football, and Hendon Hooker's legs were a big part of that. So they let him run the football more. They called more quarterback runs. I don't think you do it every week. I think you do it in certain matchups, certain big games when you have to have it. You keep it honest there. But I'm not running him, against whoever that I've got control of the football game in. I'm not running him. And I think they learned that lesson a little bit in year 1 when in a blowout game against Missouri, they're running Hendon Hooker on an option, at the goal line and letting him get hit up 4 touchdowns. So I think you're just a little bit more selective with it in big games, and then you're cautious with him in games where you say, you know what, we can win this game. We feel good about our plan without the quarterback run being a part of it.
Exterior Home Solutions puts East Tennessee's community first, rooted in trust, and are the first choice for roofing and exterior home renovations. That is our friends, Exterior Home Solutions. Free estimate. Give them a call today, 865-524-5888, online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Big thanks to them for being the presenting sponsor here of the Volquest podcast. Big thanks to you for sending in all your questions. Sorry we didn't get to more of those, but worked through about 16 today, and we'll hit some more next week. For Brent Hubbs, Awesome Price, Rob Lewis, I'm Eric Kane. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.